G'day and welcome to Queensland Farmer. Well, this is a December 2023 update of the orchard, and over the back there, the garden. So it's been an interesting year this year. We've had winds at the wrong times, which has certainly hurt quite a bit when it's come to setting the fruit. On this lychee tree, you'll see that we've got just a few fruits setting on this tree. It's not typical from what we normally get, but again, it's just been an interesting year. We've had some dry periods, and then we've had some really wet periods, and then some windy periods. So that appears to be the result. Last time we did an update, we showed that there was lots of fruit setting on the mango trees. And similar issue, we've got a few fruit, but those are good fruit. Whilst we don't have the quantity, we appear to have the quality in fruit this year. And this one here is an example where you can see it's a good sized mango. Our biggest issue now is that the fruit is being taken by birds. We'll start to pick some of this fruit while it's still not ripe, and we'll put it into paper and we'll let that ripen naturally. That'll give us enough fruit to keep us going for at least 12 months with a bit of luck. As you can see, the fruit on this tree is intact. It's looking great. However, here's an example of what happens when the birds get involved. They don't even take it off the tree. They just pick away and bite bits and pieces off it. So whilst you don't mind sharing a little bit, it's a little bit disappointing when you see them rip a tree apart and take all the fruit. So that's one of the reasons we're going to remove the fruit before it's actually ripe. This tree is looking lush with fruit. This area here may die off. However, on this side, it's good levels of fruit all through it. It's got that pinkish area to the top, so that should be right just to take off. Just like that. This passion fruit has certainly been a challenge. Since we put this together, it's grown really quite slowly and slower than we expected. We've had some feedback that we should put some of this metal along the top here as well, and we certainly will once this sort of grows a bit more. We've added fertiliser, we've added mulch, and we've kept that up throughout the year, but it still really hasn't grown how we expected. So if you've got any ideas on what you think might be missing, I'd love to hear about those in the comments below. These kaffir limes are in various stages of growth, and it's not something that we use a lot of, so we tend to give quite a few of these away. The mulberries are coming into fruit, which is lovely to see. There's a few green ones there and just another red one here, and the tree's got a couple of little red ones, so they should be right just for Christmas. These macadamia nuts are interesting. We've got two trees alongside each other. This tree here has green macadamia nuts, so they're not ripe yet. And then a quick look over at this tree, and all it has on it is ripe macadamia nuts. We're just going to come out of there, pull that apart. Whoops, that wasn't a good catch. Pull it out of there. He's a slippery little sucker. And this is what you buy in the shops. Just check out this asparagus. I know we need to maintain it, we need to cut it back. But just beyond that, how about that pangola? The weather has just been beautiful for growth, and the cattle will be here very soon to tackle that. Moving back into the garden, we've got some pineapples here. These don't need a lot of water, but they're growing nicely. And this is turmeric. It dies off in winter, but as you can see, it's growing really well in summer. It'll eventually come up with some white flowers and they will die off. And at that time, that's when you can dig some up and then you can use the turmeric, which is the bit in the ground. And who remembers all these pumpkins? So we've had this area here for pumpkins for quite some time now. The previous pumpkins pretty much died off, so I got in here and took out all the dead plants and put those in the compost heap. I added some blood and bone and then some of this mulch, which is sugarcane mulch. And with the rain that we've had recently and certainly the heat that we've got, it's just gone off. It really is growing quite well. You can see the flowers are coming up and then the fruit comes up. The native bees, I can see them here. Not sure if you can see them, but the native bees are having a good time here in the flowers. We've got some volunteer tomatoes turning up. We'll end up pulling those out and putting those in another bed because they will definitely be smothered by the leaves of this pumpkin. And this is the next generation of pumpkins. So there's a number of them in this garden bed already. So as they grow, we'll be able to pick those and that'll keep us in pumpkins hopefully for another year. Earlier this year we pulled out 56 kilos of sweet potato from this very garden bed. It looks like it needs a water at the moment. The sun's particularly hot and we watered it yesterday, but it's just a hot time of the year, so we need to keep the water up to it. Hopefully we'll get a similar result as the last time we harvested out of here. And when we do that, I'll make sure that we record it and show you the results. We really didn't plant a lot of sweet potato. Early in the piece, we left the sweet potato that we just didn't happen to pull out of the bed, and then we found that there were a few small areas where we had bare patches. So out of our stock, if you like, we just put a couple of sweet potatoes in, and they've just been very attracted to the environment and grown really well. We've used sugarcane mulch here as well, as you can see, as well as some blood and bone. But that is pretty much it. I did a video the other day about refreshing the garden beds and refreshing the compost heap. The compost heap had a fair bit of soil left over, which was lovely to see the soil that had formed at the bottom of the compost heap, and I put it into this garden bed. And since we did that, all of these tomatoes have grown. So we call these volunteer tomatoes. They've not been planted, and this is why they've sort of clumped together. What we'll do over time is relocate these and spread these out in this bed or other beds. That compost heap obviously is starting to rot down. I've already topped that up once after mowing, and it really is turning into something beautiful down below. I'm really happy with the way the water is being fed down to the bottom of the heap. It may look dry on top, and that's certainly the area that's exposed to the sun and the wind. However, underneath it is still quite moist, and that is the idea of having that hessian over the top. So any time that we're in the garden, we spray that hessian, keep it wet throughout, and then put some water down that black tube so it gets down into the base of that compost. The rhubarb are in a different bed. We've transplanted them from another bed. We cut them back a bit. We put some blood and bone in this new bed, and of course now they're underneath the shade and they're responding really well to that. Even though these leaves are drying out a bit, that humidity and the heat here at present is giving them a bit of a hard time, but they're certainly growing better now than they were out in the open. Got a fair bit of lettuce growing here. We've previously had lettuce in this garden bed, and this area here is where it went to seed. So I'm really pleased that we just let it go to seed. We've got some new lettuce there, and we've started to move them into organised lines so we can at least harvest that lettuce when it becomes mature. I know the tomatoes here don't look great. What's happened with those is that we relocated those yesterday from another garden bed, and whilst they got a water at that time, they're obviously due for another water after I finish doing this video. The silver beet, which is the next garden bed along, you'll see that we've been cutting this off since the first time we've harvested from it, and we fed that to ourselves, and we also fed some to the cattle. Each time we cut it off, it just grows new leaves again. I'm going to continue to do that to see how this responds and to see if it's going to be a perpetual source of growth. The cattle really like eating that, so it's really a bit of free food for them. And the next cut will be the third harvest that we've got from those plants. So rather than rip them out from the roots and then cut the roots off, just cut along just above the soil, and you can use that yourself, and then let those roots regrow and form into something like this. Whilst these tomatoes look organised now, they actually grew by themselves. As they germinate from another garden bed, we're taking them out of there, putting them in here and bedding them down, and they're growing quite nicely. So I'd describe these as volunteer tomatoes as well. This is capsicum. These have grown from seeds from a capsicum that we ate. So we just took the ball of seeds out of the middle of the capsicum. There were two, threw them in there just to see what would happen. And as you can see, it's actually grown quite well. What we'll do with those is very soon, we might even do it today, is relocate those to a garden bed that's going to allow them to grow, mature, and then we can harvest those. We bought some corn from the store and we didn't get through it before it sort of started to turn. So we took that corn out and we just cut it along the cylinder, and then we put that in the ground and it grew. And then we ended up, once it had grown, we pulled it out of the heap that it was in, and then we put them in lines here. And there's 80 corn here. You can see that some of them haven't grown very high. However, the silks have been on. The corn cobs are growing quite nicely. And among the corn cobs, there's more tomatoes growing, as you can see. So we'll be pulling more tomatoes out of here and putting those into another garden bed. It's just terrific when we get the opportunity to grow food like this for nothing. Just a little bit of water and a little bit of fertiliser. So it's really quite cost effective to grow a garden and reduce that cost of living. Over on this side, you might see that we've had a couple of corn fall over. Well, I suspect they didn't fall over. They were pushed over by our resident bandicoot, who tends to come in under one of the fences. So as of yesterday, hopefully that problem's gone. I'd been putting up with it for a little while, allowing him to come in and have a bit of a feed where he thought it was appropriate, but no more. I should just clarify, but I didn't hurt the bandicoot. In fact, what I've done is I've just fixed up the hole that I know he was getting through. So relax. I love Australian wildlife, and I usually allow them to get in and have a feed, but I really want to see how this corn turns out with it being continually harvested by the wildlife at this point. The plants are telling me it's time to give them a water, so I'll sign off now. If you've got any questions or comments, I'd love to see those down below. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.